Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. I am so excited for this segment today. Before we begin, I am Bianca Whitaker. I am the owner of B. Whitaker Counseling and Consulting, and I have been on this journey to provide psychoeducational discussions, roundtables, all these things, just to get information out that will support us in our overall mental well being. And the mission of the company is to educate, empower, and normalize. And the discussion that we're going to have today is going to do just that. I am here with the president of the Foundations Project, Bassy, and she will, of course, introduce herself and all the sparkles that comes with her business and all the skills that she holds. But this conversation is to go a little bit outside of the box of mental wellness, and we'll be talking about careers and how that ties to your overall mental wellness and mental well-being. So we want to go outside the box but still delve deeper in that mental wellness is not just one thing, but it's an overall state of being. So at this time, I'm going to ask Bassy to introduce herself, tell us more about herself and her company, the Foundations Project. Hello, Bassy.
Thanks, Bianca. So, so you might have heard her refer to me as Bassy. My full name is Baasima, but everyone calls me Bassy. It's just a lot easier. And I started the Foundation Project a little while ago and actually connects a lot to mental health. It comes from an Angela Davis quote that radical is simply grasping things at the root. And when I start to think about the roots of what well-being looks like, or what I call radical well-being, I've kind of narrowed it down to a couple of things. For me, it's been first continuous learning, so always learning how to be a better me, how to have a better relationship with myself, with the people around me, with the world. And then second, meaningful work, because we're at work all day, every day for a lot of people. Having meaning and purpose around that, and being in a very safe and purposeful environment is really important to overall well-being. So those two aspects of the Foundations Project kind of makes up what the mission is overall. We have a separate Foundations Learning Group where I do tutor students overseas, but I also am creating learning materials that focus on well-being overall. And then there's Foundations Career Consulting, which is what I've been doing for most of my career consulting and resume writing, where I get to focus a little bit more on the meaningful work and career side. So that's the Foundations Project.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that. So, hearing you speak about the project, because I feel like I only knew like one side of it, but it seems like there's a lot under the umbrella of the Foundations Project, where
Yeah.
it's even learning, actual learning, teaching of students, the career aspect, and then heard you tap a little bit into your well-being
Yeah.
and the grasping at the roots. I was like, oh. Okay. So this is the perfect segue into something that I wanted you to kind of speak on from your perspective of being a career coach and us tying that to mental wellness. And so in counseling, and I say counseling intentionally, a lot of times out there we hear
Mm-hmm.
therapy, or you're a therapist. So I am a licensed professional counselor associate. So I'm very intentional of using counseling because I provide
Mm-hmm.
professional counseling, which can overlap with others believe is therapy, but sometimes it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't. And I hear stories and I'm like, that's not counseling. And
Mm-hmm.
so one thing that's not commonly known is that professional counselors do support with career counseling. But it's not uncommon that an individual is going to go to a career coach first. Thinking about careers, just that connection of how the two coexist, because someone's going to come to you and say, hey, I'm trying to get to that bag. Like I'm coming to you because I want that bag, honey.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, I'm hearing that your mind is like, oh, we got to start at the root. So
Yeah.
mental health me is like, the roots, I don't know, always jump to the bag. So can you talk to
Yeah.
me a little bit about that connection?
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, 'cause there are a lot of people who I would recommend go to a counselor before they go to a career counselor. And it varies. It depends on what people are coming to you for. A lot of times people just come, they want a resume.
Hmm.
And there's very little I can do there
Yeah.
because they're not coming to me for career coaching. They're not coming for that in-depth work to really look at where their career is overall. They just want those specific services. And that's usually where I see most of the need for more inner
Mm.
work. but I'm not able to provide those because that's not what they come to me for.
Yeah.
So I can do a lot more when someone has come for more in-depth career coaching. I definitely recommend, no matter what your career goals are, that everyone seek a counselor, a therapist.
She is
Definitely.
not a paid spokesperson, people. I promise I did not pay
No.
her to say that.
But I think at this point, a lot of people realize that, like, if you're not going to therapy, if you're not working on yourself, what are you doing? So that's one thing. I recommend that for everybody, but definitely if you are finding patterns in your work, if you find that you have gone to many jobs and you're perpetually unhappy, you can definitely talk to a career coach about that. Go to someone who maybe is more mental health informed, or go directly to a counselor and actually talk through some of the things that may be unwork related that could be affecting your work, because all usually connected. So when I think about doing the inner work and career goals, it actually makes me think about a story. So I was in university, and we'd end classes, go into the summer. And in my family, you're looking for a summer job because I was getting off a work study. So I ended up actually applying for the same job my sister did. And it might have been like right after freshman year.
Yeah.
And it was like a tour job. So you had to take these bus loads of kids. I don't think it was adults. I believe it was students, to different places in Canada. I went to a university in Toronto, and and do these tours and be very dramatic and animated. And I'm going for this job with her. We both go through the interview. She gets it, and I don't. But of course, at the time, I'm devastated because I wanted this job. I wanted to be able to travel and have all the perks, and of course, get paid over the summer. I think I ended up finding a different job, like at an amusement park. But it was a really great lesson when I look back into what, I was doing that in university, but I feel like some adults are still doing that today, where they're applying for work or going for work because they get to travel, or they get good benefits, or they get a bag, and they're looking at all these external things, but not realizing there's not a good fit. For me, I'm very introverted. I'm not like my sister at all. I could not have done those tours. It would have broken me. So
yes, I'm not okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I should have never gone for that job in the first place. And I'm so down now because I didn't get something that wasn't for me anyway. So we end up looking at the perks of a role, or that we want to make a certain salary, and we still end up unhappy because what you're actually doing day to day matters much more. It doesn't, it's not completely disconnected, but it does matter a lot more than what you get at the end of a week or the end of a month, because you're doing it every day, day in and day out. So it's really important to think about, what strength do I bring to the table? What are my shortcomings? Where do I shine? What do I really want? And be more self-aware when it comes to setting career goals. Because if you set them based on things that look shiny, you end up getting something underneath that's not very pretty.
Thank you for sharing that. I was taking notes while you were speaking. And one thing I want to highlight, emphasize, put in this space, okay, and scream for the people in the back, okay? That was me screaming for the people in the back when you said, if you are not working on yourself, what are you doing? Even the attitude that you had with the what are you doing? Like, it was almost the urgency of like, what are you doing? And so don't know if we can make that into a shirt, but here the idea was given here. Yeah, like, if you're not working on yourself, what are you doing? And that's so powerful. And I don't want to go on a tangent. I was listening to a podcast or an interview today, and it was speaking about how so often we're looking outside of ourselves to fulfill something that should be internal. And sometimes we're doing that in partnership. Sometimes we're doing that in other forms of relationships where we are looking outside of ourselves and we're needing something. But instead of us tapping in and acknowledging that we have the need and that it is a need, we're looking almost for somebody else to give that to us. And so when I'm hearing kind of what you're sharing about the job, even, and thank you for sharing your personal experience of, my introverted self went for a job where I needed to be extroverted, but I wanted all the perks. And now I'm sad within myself and I'm devastated because I didn't get the job and my sister got it, but that job wasn't for you. right? Like you wanted
a little
what
bit.
you wanted what came with it, and
Yeah,
that would have broke you. Being if
yeah.
you're introverted, you got to be excited and all these things around people all day.
You know how exhausted I would have been after every.
Emotionally exhausted.
Yes.
and and that's so important because you also mentioned another part of the inner work. And so
Mhm.
sometimes when you are hearing about yourself from an outside perspective, it's
Mhm.
so easy to get defensive. It is so easy to
Mhm.
find where they were wrong or they were
Mhm.
flawed, and but you don't know yourself,
Yeah,
or solid enough in you to say,
yeah.
this is what I know of myself, but you're receiving me a certain way. So it's almost like staying curious
Mhm.
of, what would make them see that in me?
Yeah, yeah.
Or recognizing when you got defensive, there probably was some truth to it. That's why you're
Exactly.
defensive. But we're not gonna plug that, right? We're not here for that. So
Exactly.
yes, and in the beginning of you starting answering that question, you said you get some of these clients in and they just want a resume, but you can recognize a greater need. Could you
Mhm.
speak a little bit more about, and you don't have to get messy, but can you speak a little bit more about what, how those needs, or the recognition of like, ooh, you need something a little bit more than just your resume tailored?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's challenging because you think about, I was bringing it back to, I'm not sure if anyone remembers in high school, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If
I
someone, yes, so if someone is trying to meet a basic need, if they've just been laid off, it's very difficult to have some of those more in-depth discussions because you just don't have the time. They're like, I need a
remember.
job, I need a job now.
Yeah.
But I feel like even that's part of the inner work, like
Hmm.
recognizing I'm in a place where I feel unstable, I feel unsafe, going into your job search with that awareness so that you don't end up in the same place
Hmm.
3 months later when you landed a job and accepted a job you can't stand.
Yeah.
And then you're back on the market. So there's a bit of that. But then for those who maybe have a little bit more time, maybe they are secure in their work and they're just looking for something better. Um, I see that in a lot of ways. I see it in, you mentioned defensiveness, which
Mm.
is often surprising to me. I do a lot of contract work, so I'm working for other companies,
Mm.
and doing kind of interviewing of professionals looking for support. Um, and there's a lot of defensiveness, and I get so confused because
Mhm.
they've spent a lot of money on these packages, but
Mm.
they're coming at me as if I am an enemy. And I'm just trying to find out
Yeah.
who you are so
Mhm.
we can present you like you're a superstar.
Right.
But you're coming at me not like a superstar.
Yeah.
So it's obvious that you don't believe you have that to offer. It's obvious that there is something where, and I'm hoping these people aren't doing this in an interview process where you're actually trying to get a
Yeah.
job and you're talking to someone as if either uh, it's kind of a little too boastful and you're not finding that middle
Mhm.
ground
Mhm.
of I'm confident in myself, but I don't have to be overly confident, or kind of a little bit aggressive in that. And I'm definitely not getting defensive if they're asking me a question about something I did or did not do. I'm not overly presenting information about things I don't bring to the table, which aren't relevant to the
Mm.
job, and kind of selling myself short. So I see that a lot. It's a range of I feel
Yeah.
I really love self-esteem, and I'm honest about that, but maybe too honest. I
Mhm.
don't recognize that, so I'm getting defensive, or I just don't see it at all, and I'm coming across as a little bit too braggy when
Mm.
that's not what you want to do in an interview. So if I see it when they're talking to me, I'm just like, if I can bring it up, if they seem open, I'm like, just keep that in mind for if you get into an interview. And then for others, I just send them off with hopes that they do well,
Yeah, yeah,
and they
yeah.
don't come across to others as they did to me.
Yeah. Thank you. My mind is going. I started taking notes and then I got intrigued. You're like, oh, snap. Right. And my note is incomplete.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing that. And thank you because
Mhm.
I'm seeing so much of just connecting this to mental wellness in my work as a professional counselor. So sometimes I have, well, not sometimes, I have a pre-screening process. So somebody may come and say, hey, I want counseling and I want to do this. And so I offer a free 20-minute pre-screening process where I'm just kind of getting to know them a little bit more. They're presenting concern and if I'm a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, of course, you're asking at their level of awareness, what's been going on or what do you see as the problem? And
Mm-hmm.
they will tell you something, and it's like, oh no, that's not it. That's not it. Right? I'm never saying that. I'm never saying that, but I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And immediately my mind goes to, right. I kind of look at what they're presenting with me or what at their level of awareness, what they're
Mm-hmm.
seeing as the concern, what
Mm-hmm.
underneath I'm kind of grasping could also be at play. And then
Mm-hmm.
I immediately go to who is or is not in your life that's honest with you,
Mm-hmm.
or even how are you showing up to other people? Are you your genuine self
Yeah.
for this to even be recognized? So
Yeah.
I see, I'm not going too far off topic, but when I'm hearing you say, hey, you are paying a lot of money for a service and now you are coming and projecting some stuff onto me as a stranger and I don't know you. Right? It's like if people just sit in that like, hey, just met you
Yeah.
today. So, right, like there's something there.
Yeah.
We experience that in society, in the work,
Yeah.
be in traffic, be at the store, where people are it's almost like you're
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, is there entitlement? Is there a level of like what is going?
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
you. I am a
They come at
stranger.
you like an enemy, and we're
Yes,
not enemies
at all. But
at
that's the
all.
inner work of sit with that discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
Even that question you asked me, something came up. I may have my
Mm-hmm.
own notes of like I think she coming for me, but let me write this question down. She don't know me, right? Like you may have to go through that process in your head.
Yeah.
So yeah, so much came to mind when you said that, and I see that there is a lot of overlap, right? Like you're getting paid to talk to these individuals, and even thinking of the four agreements. And one
Mm-hmm.
of the four agreements is to never take anything personally.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's
There's a
very
lot of that.
difficult. Right? It's very difficult. But I'm putting that in the space between us and saying that, or whoever is listening, that your reaction to what someone else has said or done is not about what they have said or done.
Mm-hmm.
It's in you, especially if this person doesn't know you.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is in you that
Mm-hmm.
you have taken something personally. I even put
Yeah.
something on social media, just something that came to my mind on Friday. And it was
Mm-hmm.
a post along the lines of, you taking something personally is about you taking something personally. Your
Mm-hmm.
accountability and responsibility for handling that can't be passed on.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
even as they're coming to you like, hey, I need a job,
Yeah.
I got let off, and now they're attacking you, and it's like,
Mhm. Yeah.
um, so you not gonna answer number two. So we'll go to number three. Like I can't.
Yeah, and I have to do a lot of that. It's a lot of, and I've had lots of years of practice because
Mhm.
and there's a lot of empathy there because I am in one of my contracts and doing outplacement. So I know these people have been laid off and a lot of
Okay.
people by surprise. So you go in with a level of
Mm.
compassion. But then there are those who, even with that, where we go kind of back to what I mentioned earlier about the inner work, where if you're self aware about that, I've had people who were, I think, who come to the conversation saying, yes, I feel defeated, or yes, I'm
Mm.
feeling some imposter syndrome. And then I'm like, thank you. Now we can move on from
Right.
there because we've
Mhm.
acknowledged that. Whereas those who kind of buried it, it comes across in very unhealthy ways.
Mhm.
So I can sit and I can be empathetic,
Mhm.
but what ends up happening is if you continue down that path, it gets in the way of the ultimate goal, which is both of our goals to get you a job and to
Right.
get you a job that you like. So when you start to stand in your own way, especially if
Mhm.
I'm telling you, hey, you're standing in your own way, I'm trying to help, I'm trying to help. We only have 10 more minutes. Tell me something that I can
Yeah.
help. And you choose not to, then it's out of my hands. So
Mhm.
being aware of that and then being aware of that in the midst of the ultimate goal. Can I take some time? Can I breathe? Can I say if I need to reschedule if I'm not up for it so that we can meet the goal of getting you a job? Because if you stay with a wall the whole time,
Yeah.
we're not going to meet that goal. We're not going to meet it in the most effective way.
Mhm. Something that resonates also in those instances, especially if you haven't done the inner work, when you allow your career to be part of your identity.
Yeah.
And so
Very
now I, like you just said, like you're contracted knowing these
much.
people lost their jobs. So all
Yeah.
that I have known, all that I
Yeah.
am, all that I define myself as is
Hmm.
gone. And
Hmm.
so thank you for mentioning that last part, because that is so important too, of like, who are you outside
Hmm.
of these external things? So we're talking about inner
Hmm.
work. It's not that you can handle criticism. It's not
Hmm.
that, you can handle the hard things.
Hmm.
Also, who are you? If this job was to go away, if this
Hmm.
opportunity was to go away, if that bag didn't come,
Hmm.
next month, you may have to wait a few months. Like, who are you?
Hmm.
What is the
Hmm.
essence of who you are? Um,
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
so, okay. So, was there any last minute things you wanted to share? I feel like we got really in depth with that. And I thank you so much. I didn't realize how it was so connected, with
Yeah.
the work that we do, separate, completely separate,
Yeah.
but the same in
Yeah.
the sense of,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I would just reiterate that what you just said. We talked about the inner work in relation to your career goals, but the inner work outside of your career goals and recognizing that you're a
Mhm.
whole person without that. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you come feeling like this is all you have, there's going to be that sense of desperation. It's going
Mhm.
to be a very unpleasant process. But if you
Yeah.
go on saying this is what I can add, this is what I can give, this is where I have passion, as opposed to this is who I am, it's a
Mhm.
very different process. So counselor, therapist, inner work. That's the message for the first part of
Yes.
our discussion.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm gonna like clip that part as the voice.
yeah,
Counselor, therapist, inward. Like we're just gonna rotate that, right? Like it's just gonna be like a
yeah,
bomb
yeah.
when certain things come up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. So we're gonna transition into talking about the longevity or investing in ourselves for a greater outcome in the future.